I think the worst part about Elon Musk is that he's also just unbelievably stupid. I'd like to propose that 1% of appointed judges, as determined by elected bodies, will be fired every year. This will weed out the most corrupt and least competent. Says the unelected official who we can't vote out. Damn. Yeah, I just don't, I don't even know what to say. My thoughts. Dude. There's been a recent like attempt for conservatives to pretend like they were the cool ones because it was the Democrats who opposed abolishing slavery. And it's like, stop, dude. Just say psych. Come on. Come on. Stop. Stop. No. Dude, stop. We all know just because the party name swapped, the values that are you currently align with, please, please. They've been doing this forever. I know, but it's just like, I just don't want to believe in it, man. I just don't want to believe in it. Elon is shrinking the government. It's causing actual unemployment in our area. Yeah, I mean, no shit. Like, no offense. But Elon Musk just pretending like you can go in and fire a bunch of people. I mean, he tried that with Twitter. And then the website was breaking for how many months, weeks straight? And then he had to hire a bunch of those people back. Because he's like, oh, wait. Oh, you guys actually were doing stuff. Okay. Anyone want to come back? Anyone want to come back? Anyone? Anyone? Anyone at all? No, no, no one else. No one. No. Okay. I wanted to take a quick peek in this this video from Secular Talk. Elon conspiracy goes deeper than you thought.
Gil, welcome. Great to have you.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. So before we jump in, I just want to do a plug for your Substack. It's called the Nerd Reich, newly actually renamed the Nerd Reich, which I think is a great title for it. And people, please subscribe and support the work that Gil is doing, because as
I think we should pick a different name.
I just said in your introduction, I think you have done a better job than I've seen of anyone, really distilling what the ideology is, really distilling what the plan is. And I think that is so important as we all try to digest this just massive influx of news that we are all trying to, make heads or tails of. So before we get into Elon Musk specific, can you just give people a little bit who you are, where you came from, how you, ended up on this particular beat of like Silicon Valley oligarchs?
Sure. Well, I started my career as a journalist. The first major newspaper I worked for was the San Jose Mercury News. Back in the dot-com boom, in 1998, I started. After a few years, newspapers were going sour, so I ended up working in politics for a long time, for about 17 years. I was a spokesman and communications director for people like Governor Jerry Brown, Senator Dianne Feinstein, Kamala Harris when she was Attorney General. And then in 2018, I returned to journalism as editorial page editor of the Sacramento Bee, and later editorial page editor of the San Francisco Examiner. And for the past 2 years, I've been freelance, sort of combining my political knowledge with my journalism skills to write a couple of newsletters on the Ghost platform. Actually, I left Substack last year. Ghost is a nonprofit that I used. And that's sort of where I am now, is sort of freelancing. And I started writing this story about tech and the ideology because I felt there was a story not being told. And I wasn't sure why no one was telling it for the most part. There were a few reporters who delved into it. And so I started telling it myself, and here we are.
So, Gil, my first question to start to unpack all of this is just the very basic, like, what is Elon Musk's ideology, and what does he actually want?
Friends. I think once you reevaluate Elon Musk as a guy who desperately wants friends, everything else makes sense. All the other shit that he does makes sense.
Like, what is the end game here? What is he trying to accomplish as he unleashes his DOGE apparatchiks in this, attempted coup?
Well, people often make the mistake of thinking this is just about money and tax breaks and fewer regulations. But Elon Musk already has more money than anyone else in the world. Elon Musk already breaks laws and rules and regulations on a regular basis with no consequence. So this is about something far, far bigger than that. This is about power and who gets to wield power in the 21st century. There's a new extreme ideology that has taken root in certain quarters of Silicon Valley, not in all of tech, but in a pretty significantly impactful portion of tech. And it sees that the 21st century is a power vacuum, and it proposes to fill that power vacuum with a new system of governance by tech corporations and the people who control those corporations. And that's very much what this is about that we're seeing today. It's about who controls the 21st century, who has power. And it's also about
more accurately, who has capital, right? I mean, this is from like a day ago.
The next department that appears to be on the chopping block is the Department of Education. Just earlier today, Democratic members of Congress were blocked from entering the department's headquarters. Democratic lawmakers had met outside to protest Donald Trump and Elon Musk's plan to abolish the department entirely, as well as attempting to seek a meeting with the department's senior leadership. Lawmakers were not only blocked by security.
Sorry, it's not showing up. Sorry.
Holding the front door, but also by Department of Homeland Security police seen in multiple videos from members of Congress.
You know which department is famously overfunded? Yeah, the Department of Education. Famously, teachers make too much money.
Lawmakers were told by security guards stationed outside that nobody had accepted a meeting and that they needed an escort in the building in order to enter the building.
The door, he says he's a federal employee. He won't tell us who gave him permission to do this. All he knows is he's going to stand here and tell the members of Congress who are elected, who vote for the funding for all of them in this building, and for the student loans, and for the Title I families, he's going to tell us that we can't come in and talk with anybody. Is that right?
So here's the problem with DOGE as a concept, the fake government organization, the non-government. Also, yeah, just like move the guy. I'm sorry. They're pretending like it's fucking Hulk Hogan or something standing and blocking this door. Like, looks like an average fucking Wall Street bro. Just move him. It's like, I don't know. Anyways, let me just get back to what I was trying to say. The problem with the idea of like trying to defund just everything all the time, or as many organizations or government bodies as you can, is that you don't know all of the moving parts and what is going to be impacted by removing funding from an institution. Literal cucks, look what they did in Korea. Oh, God. Literal brown shirt. So, is there a government waste? Yeah, of course. Is there money that we sort of just lose every year to something that will never produce anything? Yeah, of course. 100%. I'm not even talking about, when I'm talking about produce anything, I am not including medical research, because you expect most medical research to go nowhere. Maybe you fund 100 medical research projects. If you're lucky, one of them has some type of cure or vaccine or treatment for something. I'm not talking about medical research. I'm talking about government funding for programs, for government programs. For example, FOFSA, funding public college, or even, I mean, you can get FOFSA for private college, but realistically, you're not going to a private college if you qualify for FOFSA. Let's just say there is some percentage of students that college is not for them, and the people who get FOFSA just don't. Some of the people who get FOFSA don't ever. I thought it was FAFSA. Is it FAFSA? I don't know why I'm thinking it's pronounced FOFSA. Sorry, I'll change. Jeez, sorry. I'll be normal if you guys insist. Just say you hate neurodivergent people. Just say that you're ableist, chat, okay? Anyways, let's just say some percentage of students, they will graduate high school, and going to college is not in their like career path, right? People who, because the thing is, we still need people in trade, right? It doesn't matter how many people are on in the United States. We need tradespeople. We need people in electrical work. We need people doing construction. We need people doing physical manual labor. We will always need that labor, right? And there's some percentage of people who are going to graduate high school and college is not going to be for them. That maybe trade school would be better, or maybe working on their own startups would be better, or whatever. And maybe the money that is, quote, wasted, quote, on the kids who, you know, apply for FAFSA, get government grants, get Pell grants, end up going to school for a year, end up going to college for a year, and then they don't ever get a degree and they don't want to get a degree. And then that money kind of gets, quote, wasted. First of all, I want to argue that it's not wasted, because just being able to go to college and know what that's like and learning what that experience can be means that you can approach it later in life. Right? I know a lot of people who graduated high school, they tried college, and then they realized they did not want to do college. They left, they did other shit for like a decade, and then at 30, they were like, actually, yeah, I'm down to try it again. I remember what it was like. It wasn't that hard. I just didn't have the fortitude to just sit down and study. Now as an adult, I think I'm down to sit down and study and get my degree now. Just having experienced it on its own is important and can provide something of value. But let's just say there are some people who say, I'm definitely not going to go back to college. That's definitely never going to be for me. Nope, I'm good. And that money that we gave them to go to college, it wasn't, quote, valuable because they were never going to get their bachelor's and they don't want to get their bachelor's and they live a good life as doing plumbing work, making mad bank, whatever. Who cares? Do you know how many people are benefited by FAFSA? Do you know how many people get to seek higher education because FAFSA exists? I don't care that a couple people use federal money to try college and find that that's not their fit. It's not for them, which is fine because we don't want 0 plumbers. We don't want 0 people in construction. There is some manual labor that still needs to get done. There is some trade labor that we still need. So it's good that not everybody wants to go to college, or not everybody, it's not for them to do that. But like, I don't care if some people go to college, spend federal money to try and experience it, take a couple classes, and then never go back to college ever again for the rest of their life. Because that is a drop in the bucket compared to all the people who are FAFSA recipients who get to graduate college because of FAFSA, who get to improve their quality of life, who get to improve our GDP, who get to increase the general level of intelligence in our society, that we have more college educated people who have now had more experiences, know more about their field. That's good. The benefit far outweighs the small loss. The small loss. And it's like that with most government bodies, most government programs. Another great example is food stamps. I really don't care about food stamp scammers. If you're at the point where you're applying for food stamps, if you're at the point where you are asking for assistance from the government to afford groceries, you should just have it. That's crazy. That's so insane. I really don't care if someone who can afford groceries gets $200 or $100 a month on groceries. Because guess what? It's probably in like millions at this point of Americans that rely on food stamps need it. The benefit outweighs the loss. The very little bit of money that is wasted, and I'm putting wasted in huge quotes here, okay? The very little money that's wasted on people who could otherwise pay for this themselves. I don't care. Because again, the benefits far outweigh the cost, and the money that you're going to spend trying to find all of these inefficiencies is going to be more than it's worth. I was on food stamps. I made $20 too much that week, and then I missed the mail saying I need to surrender my food stamps, and I got a bill for $400. These programs are traps if you slip up even a little. In a perfect world, everyone should go to college just to improve their knowledge base, but then decide to go into a trade afterwards. But then that would require a system that prioritizes societal good over green. If only such a system existed. Oh, man. Lives Goes, thank you for the 5 gift subs. Streamer Stream, thank you for the 10. Wow, Doggy, thank you for the Prime. Shifty, thank you for the Prime. Tay, thank you for the 23. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. Yeah, it's just the problem is that also Republicans think that the successes of these programs are also waste. It's just such an absurd notion. It's just crazy. I'm sure that there are government programs that do have more waste than other government programs. I mean, I would point at the Pentagon first and foremost. Let's just be real for a second. I would look at our unbelievably bloated military budget, especially considering the fact that we've been known for a very long time that the federal contracts within our military budget, for our military complex, are a mess. They're a mess. We overpaid like crazy for just like MREs at one point, and there was a huge investigation into that. Random parts for random like military equipments just are way the fuck price jacked. $650 toilet paper rolls. No bid contracts, baby. Yeah, no bid contracts. Like, if we're talking about government waste, how about, I don't know, how about as a notion, as a concept, we look into the contracts for our military budget? Because we're getting totally scammed. Oh my God. I think FAFSA should be banned, and we should tariff the school lunches because those 3rd graders always take the chalky milk before the 2nd graders. Funny how DOGE isn't going after those programs, Smile. You don't understand. We need the F-35s. Please ignore the fact that they can't fly in rain and constantly crash and the stealth doesn't work. Okay, moving on. Sorry, moving on.
Tell us that we can't come in and talk with anybody. Is that right?
It's also been alleged that the Pentagon misplaced $1.3 trillion. It's only $1.3 trillion. We need to go after that single mom that, she actually this week, she made enough money. She didn't need the $200 of food stamps. So let's bill her.
Joining me now is one of the lawmakers who tried to enter the Department of Education today, Congresswoman Jahana Hayes, Democrat of Connecticut, and a 2016 National Teacher of the Year. It's a great pleasure, Congresswoman. And, let's just get right to the bottom. Who tried to stop you, and under what authority were they acting to block members of Congress? That's the part I have to wrap my head around. Who fund the very department that they're standing there blocking members from coming into the building?
Well, thank you, Michael, and it's great to be here. And that's a great question. We did not get an answer to that. The man who came out...
This is really like the epitome of Democrats. Like, Republicans will reach unbelievable levels of, like, evil. They will go full Hitler particles if they have to. But Democrats pushing someone? What are you, crazy?
He met us at the door. The door was locked, and then he came out and met us and said we were not allowed entry to the building. We had to be on a guest list. And when I said, well, what is your name? What is your title? all he would say is, I work for the Department of Education. Never said who he was, kept pulling out a badge and pulling it back quickly. But we said, we're members of Congress. We can come into the building. We can request a meeting. Would not even let us inside the building.
Amazing. It's just amazing. Well, it also kind of begs the question, what do you do next? I mean, this is the fourth time or so that members of Congress have been denied access to federal property. It's not a question of what do Democrats do, what do Republicans, what do members of Congress do when something like this happens? What do you think should happen next?
Well, I think that's really important. I think part of the problem is the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, has ceded all of our Article I powers to the president. And in this case, the Speaker of the House should be saying we need to respect the separation of powers. But I know that is not.
Can you please respect the separation of powers? Oh my God, dude. I'm losing it. I really want to play the We Go High, They Go Low. I really want to play it. I really, really want to play it. You guys have seen that video, right? If you've seen the alt-right playbook. Let me pull it up on screen before I ask. Can you please stop? This is a We Go. Please. One's if you've seen this, two's if you haven't seen this video. Oh, dude, there's people that haven't seen it. Dope. Yes, I love showing people this video. It's such a good video. It's like, it is the explanation, I think, for why the Democrats have become so despised by their voters and why Republicans have continued to grow in power.
Say, for the sake of argument, you're a Democratic president finishing out your last year in office. There's not a lot you're expected to do as a lame duck except endorse a Democrat for the upcoming election, but then early in the year, something unexpected happens. A Supreme Court justice dies suddenly in his sleep. Vacancies in the Supreme Court are infrequent as it's a lifetime appointment, so death and the occasional resignation are the only causes of an empty seat. And when it happens, it's the president's job to get the seat filled. So you set about the task of picking a successor, probably the last major decision you will make as president, when the Republican Senate tells you, yeah, we're not going to confirm anyone you nominate. And you say, well, if you think you've got the votes, you can reject my nominee and I'll pick someone else. And they say, oh no, we're not going to vote against your nominee. We're not going to hold a vote. What are you talking about? I haven't even nominated someone yet. We're not going to convene a vote on anyone you nominate. But that's your job. I make a nomination, the Senate holds a vote, and democracy decides who sits on the bench. Well, that's not what we're going to do. You're a lame duck. The next president will decide who sits on the Supreme Court. That's not how this works. That's not how we've ever done things. Certainly not when your party's had a lame duck in office. Well, it's what we're going to do. And you say, that's not what the Constitution says. And they say, the Constitution does not explicitly say we can't.
Trump talking about the third term. Trying to see if I can find here it is.
I've raised a lot of money for the next race that I assume I can't use for myself, but I'm not 100% sure because I don't know. I think I'm not allowed to run again. I'm not sure. Am I allowed to run again, Mike? I better not get you involved in that argument. I've raised a lot of.
Because technically the Constitution doesn't explicitly say whether it's about 3 consecutive terms. Ha 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 ha.
Your wife has a saying for when Republicans act up. They go low, we go high. So in considering your current predicament, you try to think of what taking the high road might look like. The Republicans have always accused you of being too far left, so after some deliberation, you select a middle-of-the-road, utterly uncontroversial judge, the kind of candidate a functioning Senate should have no trouble confirming. You make a display of embracing the spirit of compromise, in the hopes they'll change their tune, or at the very least be shamed into convening a vote rather than admitting this had nothing to do with the timing or the nominee and was just about refusing to collaborate with a liberal. In response, the Republicans announced that not only will they still not convene a vote, some say that should a Democrat win the election, and they don't even know who the candidate is yet, they will hold the seat vacant for however long it takes to get a Republican in the White House. You didn't call their bluff. They are all too happy to admit that this is absolutely about dicking over liberals and guaranteeing as many conservatives as possible in the...
No, it only says you can't be elected twice in a maximum of 10 years, not even a debate. It's clear you can only be, it's clear as you can be with the English language. So what you're saying is he can just run again with J.D. Vance as president, and then J.D. Vance steps down immediately, is what you're saying. So we get to have a third term. Yeah, now you're talking. Yeah. Now we're talking.
in the Supreme Court. There is no official policy for what to do if one party simply refuses to do its job. But there is a legal argument that if the Senate refuses to vote on your nominee, they are, in
This feels like QA testing for a game.
effect, giving you permission to appoint a judge without their approval. Link in the down there part. This is technically a little...
Sorry. Someone just linked this way. Let me just make sure. Proposing an amendment to the Constitution of the United States to provide that no person shall be elected to the office of president more than 3 times. Ahahaha, ahaha, ahahaha, ahahaha, ahahaha. This is good.
extra constitutional, but it is the law in many similar scenarios, and certainly if they're going to break the rules, you're within your rights to bend them. But they go low, we go high. How can you criticize them for going outside the Constitution if you're going to do it yourself? So being the grown-up, you grit your teeth and do nothing. Seemingly there's nothing to do but publicly shame them, keeping a running tally of how many days your nomination has sat on senators' desks without a vote. You can play this as keeping your integrity, the Democrats seizing the moral high ground. But in response, the Republicans seize the Supreme Court. Their guy wins the election, you finish out your term, and Republicans will put one of their own on the bench. And just before you leave off,
try 3. And then when we suggest, hey, Democrats, maybe you guys should stack the court. Well, we can't do that. That would be wrong. That would be wrong. We can't do that. We can never stoop to their level. Name of the video, Alt-Right Playbook. You go high, we go low.
office, and the new guy is inaugurated, and your nomination expires after 293 days without a vote, nearly 3 times the previous record, a Republican senator predicts that, under the new administration, the Democrats, the minority party in the House, Senate, and now Supreme Court, will be the biggest obstructionists history has ever seen. Think of the position this puts Democratic senators into. They have been preemptively denigrated for the exact behaviors Republicans have relied on for the last 8 years. After 2 terms of misuse, every means of obstructing an unfit executive branch.
Yeah, the Dems get to win on moral high ground, and we all lose our rights. Excellent. Love that trade-off.
From filibustering bills to shutting down the government rather than approve a budget proposal, has just been defined as going low. Worse, in the event of a Supreme Court appointment being literally stolen by the opposing party, it might be defensible to not convene a vote on whomever that party nominates, except that's exactly the tactic Democrats have spent 10 months condemning. If everything that might restore democratic norms is tainted by the Republicans who violated those norms in the first place, then the only honorable move left is compliance. Give Republicans whatever they want, confirm their judge as quickly and smoothly as possible, treat the situation like it's fair, because that's what they should have done when it actually was. This is somehow going high. And that comment from the Republican senator belies the truth. They know what they're doing, and they're not ashamed. They know Democrats aren't obstructionists. They're counting on it. When one party can be relied on to do the exact opposite of your worst behavior, good strategy is to do to them as destructively as possible whatever you don't want them to do to you. The new Republican norm is you go high, we go low. Now, this is a long-standing Republican thing, and we'll talk about how the alt-right comes into it by and by. And though it's effective, it's not sophisticated. I mean, I just got finished with my intro and I'm already out of things to say about it. So let's turn the camera around and ask not why the technique is popular, but why Democrats keep falling for it. On the face of it, it would appear Democrats are a lot more concerned with being called hypocrites than Republicans are, which would seem a very solvable problem. Republicans are going to yell so much for the tolerant left, no matter what form our opposition takes, so ignore them. But clearly it's not that simple, or we wouldn't be having this problem. Republicans are striking at something more fundamental to American liberalism that makes these charges of hypocrisy hard to ignore. So, what's wrong with liberals? The modern American Democrat is in an unenviable position. You need two things to win an election: votes and funding. And there are a number of things that voters care passionately about and that they have no hope of ever getting from Republicans, but unfortunately for Democrats, they are the exact things big-ticket donors despise, which is why Democrats in very secure districts who tend to run unopposed are the ones most willing to talk about them. The left is, in fact, a very heterogeneous group with a mountain of conflicting interests and decades of infighting, so it's very hard to appeal to all of them and wealthy donors. Republicans don't have this problem, or at least they don't have it as bad. Despite many, in some ways, even more passionate and fundamental differences, conservatives value loyalty and in-group cohesion, and this keeps them coming together every 4 years in a
I mean, half the people who are in the Trump camp don't even like Trump or what he stands for. Like, Tucker Carlson has text messages that were found in, I think it was because of a subpoena in court, that he doesn't like Trump. And he was literally he literally was texting his homies saying, dude, I cannot wait for Trump to not be in office anymore. The content is so boring. I hate covering it. The React content sucks when he's in office. You think Ben Shapiro, Mr. Wet-ass P-word, likes Trump? You know, the guy hiring prostitutes? You know, the guy who can't read a fucking single verse in a Bible? Who was holding the Bible upside down? Who literally said, what's it called? What is Tuck the Cuck about? Trump is content king. Well, not for Fox, right? Because for Fox, they need Dems in power so they can make fun of the Dems, right? 2 Corinthians. Tucker was subpoenaed. It was during the Dominion lawsuit where Fox News was alleging, Tucker Carlson being the primary face at the time, that Dominion was engaging in voter fraud. And Dominion sued and they won for, was it millions, billions of dollars? When Trump was asked, name your favorite verse, name your favorite Bible verse, he literally said, it's hard to pick. I love all of it. It's every verse. I love all of it. I really like all of it. Like, these fucking JD Vance went on Twitter to call Trump Hitler. And suddenly he's the biggest Trump fan on the planet. Every Christian has a favorite verse coming from someone who used to go to church. Yeah, it's if you say the Bible is your favorite book, but you can't pick a verse, it's a really personal question, okay? My favorite part was when the big guy says, you're a wizard, Jesus. No, he says, you're a prophet, Jesus, okay? Get it right. Fake fan, fake Bible fan, boo. Anyways, TLDR, They will back whoever is in power. Whoever has the most traction will get general Republican support, even when it's fucking Trump.
Surprisingly unified voting bloc. It also helps that they fucking hate us, and most would sooner vote for a Republican they despise than any kind of Democrat. And lucky for them, the things conservative voters want are much more aligned with corporate interests. So building a coalition on the left is a lot of work. And faced with this challenge, there is a liberal tendency to turn away from policy and focus instead on process. Generally uncontroversial things like bipartisanship, compromise, decorum. And fair enough, the absence of these things in Washington over the years is certainly something everyone left of center is sick of, but they're not things Democrats can make happen all by themselves. And more to the point, none of them are results. They're means. Like, a willingness to compromise is not a position, and when you overfocus on how you should go about things and not what things you should go about, it fosters a certain philosophy about government that is both highly flawed and highly exploitable. The valuing of means at the expense of ends. Most people would say that the ends justify the means is a crap moral philosophy. Democrats would agree. But liberals often overcorrect to the point where thinking about the ends at all is thought of as, in a vague, reflexive kind of way, innately immoral. There's a very Enlightenment way of thinking that implies that with the right means, the ends take care of themselves, and immoral behavior becomes functionally impossible. I want to stress that claiming political group A adheres to philosophy X is always reductive. Human beings hold many patterns of thought simultaneously and slip between them depending on context. This is less the key to understanding liberals and more one pattern of thinking liberals often slip into. But this idea of the perfect system that can only spit out justice is how liberals tend to think about democracy. We can call this values-neutral governance, and you can see why it would appeal when you're trying to sum all the demands placed on a politician. Under this thinking, you don't need to engage with the needs and desires of your constituency, your donors, or even your opposition. Because if democracy is working, everyone deserving will get what they need as a matter of course. That's what democracy is for, to divine what is right out of a cacophony of different voices. It's okay for people, even people with power, to have bad ideas, because bad ideas will always be outnumbered by good ideas, checks and balances. Hell, you can have.
I mean, this video was also made back when people like Sargon of Akkad were still relevant, and they would post about how, no, you can't just ban the opposition. The marketplace of ideas will allow the best ideas to proliferate and the worst to fall to the sidelines. Except that was bullshit. Anyone remember Milo Yiannopoulos? No, of course you don't, because he got censored to fuck and nobody knows who the fuck he is anymore. So stupid.
Bad ideas, and it won't make any difference. Provided you commit to obeying a just set of rules, only justice will ever be produced by them.
The problem is that people with bad ideas often tend to couch their bad ideas in a bunch of disingenuous ways and lies. I mean, a really good example is, honestly, timely, Ethan Klein. He cannot win on being right, so he has to lie. He has to lie, he has to splice clips, he has to manufacture consent. Because he can't win on being right. He knows his ideas are worse, so he presents them differently.
And you can see how utterly paralyzed.
My favorite Milo lore was when he had to sell Virgin Mary statues on Christian QVC as punishment for being in PDFs. Sapphic Traffic, thank you for the prime.
It can be when half the participants of that system refuse to play by those rules. Values-neutral governance is an engine that only runs by mutual consent. Now, the system is supposed to be self-repairing. If the rules are broken in a way that it doesn't have specific contingencies for...
What's this channel called? The channel is called Innuendo Studios. This is the alt-right playbook series. We go high. Sorry, you go high, we go low.
You can write those contingencies, but you'd have to pass them through Congress or the courts, as in, you'd need the cooperation of the people violating the rules. All that's left then is to fix the system without their approval. But that's going outside the rules. That's thinking about ends. And to you, the system is morality itself. You can't go outside it and still behave ethically. If the problem is people breaking the rules, you can't fix that by breaking them further. At this point, the Democratic senator usually throws up both hands and says, fuck it then, I'm going to do what the Republicans should be doing. I'm going to follow decorum and look for compromise. I will not be responsible for the degradation of our governmental system. Maybe everything still goes to shit, but nobody could claim that I didn't do my job. And once upon a time, I think they genuinely believed that this was leading by example. But I don't think today they're under any illusions that this will right the vessel, appeal to Republicans' better nature. But Democrats keep...
He actually just posted the last video of the series. Did you watch that? No. Maybe we can watch it.
Doing it. Because on some level, they genuinely believe that even when it accomplishes nothing, following the rules to the bitter end is the noble thing to do. The captain...
I mean, what I would also argue is that Democrats nowadays are just trying to line their pockets as much as they can. So they don't even care about any of the things that they claim to care about. They get to pretend to be the moral people while lining their pockets. It's a win-win for them.
Goes down with the ship. I'm using poetic understatement when I say, this can be very frustrating. To us as citizens, the most important question is, what happens next? Republicans break a rule, Democrats take the high road, and what happens next? In practice, the answer is always, they get what they want, but we get a philosophical victory. But when the questions that govern our lives are, will I get shot by police, or will my kid die in an emergency room for lack of funds, unless it's gonna get my kid a philosophical blood transfusion, values-neutral governance isn't useful. And being told to trust in a system that didn't meet our needs so good before it got very obviously broken and our representatives decided it was more honorable not to fix it is, pardon my Anglo-Saxon, a bunch of bullpucky. I'll say one thing for Republicans. They believe in something. It's a bunch of classist, racist, misogynist doolally, but they believe it, and they govern according to those beliefs. There is no contradiction in blocking a liberal judge and bullying Democrats to confirm a conservative one. They want to overturn the right to abortion, and will do whatever it takes to put a pro-lifer on the bench. It is fully consistent behavior. And the problem isn't that they break a bunch of rules along the way, it's that what they're trying to accomplish is wrong. But Democrats focus on the rule breaking and not the intent behind it, because despite what Republicans will tell you, many Democrats are terrified of talking about abortion for fear that taking a stand on a wedge issue will lose them their coalition. Believing in a politics where everyone can disagree on everything and democracy sorts it out is wishful thinking born of necessity. It feels like it shouldn't need to be said that this ideal has never existed.
Dude, what type of mental illness do you have to type like this? Trump, dad's home, 3P. Austin 316 says I just whipper your ass. Cause he was a turd. This is some blue hair cope on a massive level. Are the blue-haired people in the room with us right now? Are they in the room with us right now? Open the schools. Open the schools. Please open the schools.
The idea of upending nation states, countries like the United States no longer...
sorry, wrong video. Sorry.
At any time in history. At the very beginning, who got to own land, who got to vote, and who was or wasn't property were enshrined in our government. And none of these things were the democracy machine spitting out justice. They were value judgments made by people convinced that them profiting the most off the system was proof it was behaving rationally. Anyone who thinks democracy is impartial is going to get played. It's also worth noting that this "don't worry about your
Yeah, I'm sure shutting down the Department of Education is going to make things better, guys. Okay.
conscience, just trust the system argument is the exact opposite of the don't worry about the system, just trust your conscience argument that liberals use to defend ethical capitalism. Just saying. But on the subject of getting played, we circle back to the alt-right itself, who, as is the trend, do the same as conservatives do, only unfiltered. What would be the effective ways to combat the alt-right? Kick them off social media, shut down their websites, cut off their funding, police their organizations as hate groups, and, if all else fails, be willing to deck someone at a counter-protest if it will prevent greater violence. So, what do they do to us? Falsely report our tweets as hate speech, DDoS our websites, try to shut down our Patreons, report us to the police as terrorists, and beat and murder people in the streets. Now, these are all things they enjoy doing regardless, but they serve a strategic purpose. If we consider doing to them any of what they've done to us, we get the performative self-flagellation. You wouldn't want to stoop to our level now, would you? And when they tell us it would be wrong to kick them off Twitter or stop them from organizing even though they keep killing people, what argument do they give us? They invoke the First Amendment. They defend not their actions, but the process.
This is like literally like... Oh God, I'm so mad that this video is still so relevant. It's hard to see this and not see the parallels. Sorry, I forgot. And not see the parallels between how Israel defenders, Israel genocide defenders talk about the IDF. Well, the IDF has to do all this terrible stuff because they're up against ISIS. I know it's not ISIS, but it's Hamas, which is basically ISIS, so we're going to call them ISIS so we can fearmonger. Also, I'm sorry, you wanted to enact a blockade? This means Israelis won't get some of their packages. I know none of the crew members are in danger and all of them were found safe, and all you did was stop goods from entering the country, but that's evil! That's so evil. Why would you do that? Anyways, we just killed another 100,000 people this year. It's insane. It's so crazy. It's so fucking crazy.
Don't believe in universal free speech or the right to assemble, but they know we do. What the right knows and the alt-right has weaponized is that the system liberals imagine has no mechanism for engaging with beliefs. Beliefs are supposed to be things you hold in your heart, and if the system doesn't conform to them, you have to trust its wisdom. If the alt-right breaks the rules, liberals can only request that they be followed. And if the alt-right follows the rules, wears a tie, and talks like an academic, liberals can only trust that these ideas will be voted against. In either case, they don't know how to call a fascist, and they don't have any plan for fighting fascism other than to just never lose an election. And they're not very good at that. The response to this is usually, but we can't go calling our opponents fascists. What if they did that to us? To which I might first respond, what do you mean, what if? Everything they tell us not to do.
I mean, it's literally... I'm pissed that the video is still so good. Oh my God, a new wisecrack video titled "Capitalism is Over. What's next is worse."
Is part of their core strategy. But also, shouldn't the determination of whether it's wrong to call someone a fascist depend at least a little on whether they actually are one? But that question can't be posed within values-neutral governance. Values-neutral governance wants rules that are correct in every scenario regardless of context. If the left and the right stand across the aisle yelling, "You're the fascist," at each other, it can condemn both or neither, but it can't determine who's the fascist without taking context into account. But in case you're wondering, these guys are the fascists, and they don't vote for Democrats. Everyone can see what the alt-right is doing, but no one knows how to oppose it within the rule set, and they never will. An action has no intrinsic value wholly separate from its outcome. A Kentucky clerk breaking the law by refusing to sign a legal gay marriage license is wrong, and a California clerk breaking the law by signing an illegal gay marriage license is right. There is a moral imperative to disobey rules when following does not lead to justice.
I mean, this seems so obvious, and yet here we are.
Some say rules are what separate us from the animals, but I've always preferred the adage that what separates us from the animals is that we have a conscience. This isn't to say we shouldn't act better than our opposition, but that maybe we shouldn't let the people going low define for us what counts as going high, and to consider that pursuing justice rather than manners may be taking...
I mean, like, this also doesn't feel like it takes that much critical thinking. Like, also, yeah, we are animals. Should we wait until we make slavery illegal to free slaves, or should you try helping to free slaves now, even though it's illegal to do that? No, we should follow the rules. Too bad that those people are still enslaved. What? That's crazy. This is what they're literally afraid of critical thinking. It's just I have no words. I have no words.
Taking the high road. To my understanding, being a grown-up sometimes means taking a kid's toys away until he can behave himself. It's clear from looking at Republicans that you can govern on your values and be successful. It's just a question of which values you govern on. The rules will not protect us from bad ideas. The only solution to a bad idea is a better idea.
Good video. Very good video. Highly recommend subscribing. Because, like, what do you do when this is what's happening in your society? USAID whistleblower details tremendous waste.
Dr. Rob Cohen's a Army veteran and USAID whistleblower. He's got an op-ed exposing USAID waste and abuse on FoxNews.com. So how does this work? Is it really that much money that goes back to the people running the subcontractors?
Well, I have to say, I want to be careful that this is a classic case where we
Let me just say, real whistleblowers don't end up on Fox News this way.
want to avoid throwing the baby out with the bathwater. USAID
Fox News famously loves whistleblowers.
does save babies. That said, it does. The studies show that up to 7 million children have been prevented from being born with HIV by giving drugs to HIV-positive mothers while they're giving childbirth, and that's a wonderful thing. That said, there is tremendous
And I've seen people on Twitter being like, how exactly does a baby get AIDS? Well, HIV. Open the schools! Open the schools, please! Open the schools! I'm begging you, please.
industrial complex. This is well known. It's been well documented. And it's probably not unique to USAID. It's probably true across the federal government, in which most contractors charge overhead that is beyond what any reasonable business would consider appropriate. And therefore, the American taxpayer does not get the return on investment that we expect.
Yeah, so we want to save babies from getting AIDS in Africa. And that's still going to happen once they look at everything and get this thing streamlined. But you're a Democrat, and you raised this issue at USAID, and you were punished for that, weren't you?
That's exactly right. So I was elevated to be the acting deputy chief of staff of the Global Health Bureau during COVID, and I immediately observed incredible delay and arrogance on the part of career bureaucrats who I fought and frankly cleaned up their mess. And instead of being appreciative that we avoided a embarrassment, I was retaliated.
Where are his eyebrows? I guess fucking Jesse Waters stole this guy's eyebrows, man.
Against, I had to sue them under the Whistleblower Protection Act, which is detailed in my op-ed, and then they proceeded to botch 10 times more money. I should add, this was under the career bureaucrats. There were political appointees like our recent assistant administrator, Atul Gawande, who did a good job of streamlining bureaucracy. And that's where there are important programs that I'm concerned are going to be thrown out with a bureaucracy that has grown over 6 decades without enough accountability. There have been efforts to reform it, not successful. And so I hope that this can be an act of creative destruction, which is a good thing, instead of just total destruction, which would be the concern of overreach.
Well, okay, and I'm sure it will be, because no one wants to see dead babies in Africa if it just costs a little bit to save them. We want to save everyone we can, but we have to save people here too. Why aren't Democrats saying, yeah, you caught us, $2 million for sex change surgeries in Guatemala, maybe not the best use of American tax dollars? Why don't they just say that?
You'll have to ask them. What I would say is under Republican administrations, agencies can pivot to support those priorities, and under Democratic administrations like the last one, you would see that. I should say those are problematic examples. They're a relatively small amount compared to, say, the efforts to prevent babies from dying. But I will also say there were other programs like the Global...
How crazy do you have to be to say the sentence, there are problematic methods with saving the babies from dying?
Global Health Supply Chain Program that was audited for incredible waste and corruption.
You're saying all these things about these babies, and
when I make shit up. I mean, they're trying to push the fucking Gazan condom lie. Like, it's pathetic. And like, everybody knows real whistleblowers end up dead, like the Boeing ones, or they move to Russia. Those are the only two options you have as a whistleblower, like a real whistleblower. Anyone who calls themselves a whistleblower and is exposing themselves this way on Fox News, sitting in a studio, is not a real whistleblower.
I want to believe you, but then when you look at the numbers, only 10% gets to the babies. The rest of it just goes to salaries. How do you justify that?
I don't, and that's where reform is needed. At USAID, it's great to start there, and I think across the federal government, there are many government contractors that are taking far more of an overhead than is appropriate, and it is, everybody knows this within foreign aid, and it needs to be reformed, and I'm glad it's being approached.
All right, well, thank you very much. Have a great weekend. We'll cover USAID more, I'm sure, next week.
It's just a pathetic video. Just totally pathetic. The Fox, I can't believe people watch Fox News. I cannot believe that people watch Fox News and just shovel this garbage right in, and they're like, yeah, this looks normal. This is good. This is good and normal. Yeah, actually 100% of aid money should go to the people who need the aid. I don't know what a worker is. I don't know what research is.